Hola! Welcome back to Life You Imagined. My name is Nico, and today we are looking at the book Flow. It's in the dark. So you know that feeling when you're working on something and you're like just really engaged in it and time just disappears and you look up and you're like, whoa, shit, 2 hours just went by. Where the fuck did that go? Yeah, that's generally referred to as, say, being in the zone or being in the flow. I'm sure you've probably experienced this. A lot of times people associate being in the zone or being in the flow with creative type activities, writing, drawing, creating music or anything basically that's creative. It doesn't have to be those exact things, but things in that vein. But it doesn't have to be creatively based things in order to be able to get into the flow or the zone. People can experience it at work. You can experience it just having fun with friends. I mean, there's plenty of situations in which you experience something like that. But this book is all about more of the creative side and maybe professional side of what it's like to do what you do and experience that moment where nothing else exists besides you and the thing you're doing. And it's effortless. It feels great. You don't notice anything around. Everything else just kind of melts away. And you're just all focused in a positive way on this thing. And so this whole book is focused on figuring out, or trying to figure out, what is it that creates those conditions in which we feel that way. You know, time disappears and you're just whoomp. You do this with your hands. You do this. Why do we do this? Thank God there's a book for it. So the author, first of all, let me point out this. I love this guy's name just because it's so strange. I don't know if you can see this right here. It's like how do you pronounce that? I've seen that apparently his name is pronounced, even though there's L's in there, it's Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, although I've heard people know him he goes by Mike. It's a lot easier. So the author calls that state, in addition to being flow, he calls it optimal experience. So that is just like, the best possible place to be, so says this person. So what I wanted from this book, and I guess what they kind of set out to do, but was a way to figure out what are these factors that go into the creative process in which you can be in the zone and you can just be in the flow and everything's amazing and wonderful and it's just time disappears and you're just like, oh my God, that was so fulfilling, that was so awesome. What are those factors, and then how can I use those ideas to then recreate it, sort of hack my own version of that in other situations and different moments in my life? Who wouldn't want to experience that more? It's just like the idea of who doesn't want to be happier? Most people would say they would. Some people may not, depending on where you're at in your life, and what your views are on happiness. But that's what I was looking for. So here's what the book does. It is very research focused, very heavy on a lot of studies and a lot of examples, which is good, which means, it does a good job at backing up the information. There's actually a very pretty intense notes and references section in the back. So I do appreciate that. Not that I tend to comb through them myself, but I like to see that it's there and I go, oh, this is based on stuff. Good old stuff. So through a lot of different interviews and studies with all kinds of people who I would say they're like similar to the book Grit, at the kind of the top of their game. People like, again, musicians and artists and writers, but also people like surgeons and athletes, people who also experience this in the zone thing with the hands and shadows. So dramatic. To kind of find out what is going on. What are the factors involved in creating that flow experience. And what the author, and maybe probably the team, probably not just the one guy. So what they came up with is this idea of your skill level and the challenge level of that thing you're doing have to be kind of in perfect balance. So they made a graph. So they have an X and Y axis. They have a horizontal and a vertical. And over here, the more it goes this way is your basically your skill level increasing, and more it goes up this way is the challenge level of whatever you're doing increasing. And they put the line of being in the flow is this diagonal, perfect balance diagonal between the two. So what they found is that by perfectly balancing your skills to whatever the challenge is at hand as you go, is where people are likely going to experience that sensation of flow, where it's just everything is, working. Everything flows and it's working and you're in the zone and all these other things that I've said several times. So that makes sense, because they also say, like, if you veer too far over here, you'll see that the challenge increases but not your skill. And so what we end up experiencing is stress. We feel overwhelmed, and that's not a good feeling. I don't know if you know this. It's not so great. So yeah, if it's just high challenge, we get stressed. If it goes the other way, we get bored. Our skills way exceed the challenge. And it's like, okay, you think it'd just be easier and more relaxing, but it's just fucking boring. So, that's why this balance, this flow line here that I'm drawing, my hands look gigantic, is this intersection where it's not too stressful and it's not too boring, and things just kind of are effortless. However, there's a wild card in this equation, and he brings it up in the book, that the other big aspect of this is your perception of the thing you're doing. Because if you think about it, what if you did some task you thought was really shitty and dumb that you didn't like, but your skill at that thing met the challenge level of that thing that you don't like? How likely do you think it's going to be that you're going to experience a state of flow? Super high? Super high? Even higher than that? Well, now that I've primed you to go this direction, no, it's probably not going to be very likely, because that's the missing factor, is that you actually like doing that thing. You actually value that thing. And they did some more research. There was one example where there was this kind of isolated village in some remote little country, and they were taking a lot of pride in their work, doing a lot of manual labor things, something that maybe if you don't do that, maybe you and I would be like, oh, that's beneath me, or that's just hard, shitty work. I don't want to do that. That's not fun. That's not enjoyable. Their values were different about the work they were doing, about this really very, very challenging work, manual labor stuff, as I said. But they took a lot of pride in it, and they were often in the flow when they did it. Time would disappear and life was good during those moments. So this is kind of all back to how perception is reality. And that's something I think of quite a lot, about how much our perceptions are sort of the key factor in how we feel about ourselves, about the world, the type of actions we're going to take, type of way we're going to feel about things is all kind of our interpretation, but that's a whole conversation and discussion in itself. So I don't want to get too far into that, but it's cool that he brought it up, because that does make a difference. Because if you're doing something you hate, and again, your skills are good at it, and it meets perfectly the level of challenge, does that really mean you're going to be in the flow? Probably not, no. But it also doesn't guarantee that if it's something you love, you're going to be in the flow either. It doesn't mean it's like it's going to happen no matter what, 100%. It's just these are the conditions they've noticed from the studies they've done. So this is interesting to understand, skill level to challenge level, and then your perception of whatever you're working on. But here's the thing. How helpful is that to know? I don't know what to do with that. I really don't know what to do with that information. I don't know how I can take that and apply it, because this book is more of a descriptive book rather than a prescriptive book. It's like, here's what we learned and here's what we think is happening. It doesn't say, now do this so you can apply that in the zone feeling to other areas of your life. Because how do you change your perception on stuff? And that's not rhetorical. Like, seriously, how do you change your perception? I mean, for instance, let's say you hated a particular type of food, like Chinese food for some reason. You hated all Chinese food, not a specific dish, just all Chinese food in general. You're just, nope, don't like any of it. Doesn't matter what combination of ingredients they do it in, you don't like it. So someone comes over and tells you, hey, person who apparently hates Chinese food for the purposes of this example, change your view on Chinese food right now. Just right now, just change your perception of it, how you feel about it. You think that's going to work pretty well? I would guess not. Politics, religion, two of the most polarizing and fiery topics, I guess. People get very up in arms about this. People get very aggressive and very emotional about these things. So take whatever your current political views are and think that, how would you feel if someone came over and said, okay, you believe these things or you support this candidate or this policy. I want you now to just not do those things and just think differently about them. You know, just have a totally different opinion. Now, have a different view on that. Religion. Say you're a strong Christian and someone says, okay, well, have a different view. You think you're just going to be able to suddenly think about, oh, and now I don't believe any of this is real, and I've decided to believe that some other philosophy or some other form of religion or spirituality is more realistic and more truthful for me. Those kind of shifts are pretty fucking hard. I haven't done them very well. Not that I haven't changed my opinion before, not that I've done it, but it's been a slow process where I have to study and learn and figure out, why this is happening, and I need more examples, I need more evidence. I mean, that's just me, that's not everybody. Some people can change for different reasons than that, maybe more emotionally based or whatever, but it's really hard to just in the moment, right now, change my opinion. Like right now, for me, change my opinion of what this book is. I mean, not what it is, but how I feel about it. Because I do have an opinion, and I'll get to that, but I can't just change it. So that's why I said, so how useful is this information? And I don't know if it's really that useful. I mean, it's nice to know. Okay, I can either increase the challenge level of something or my skill level at that thing, but how do I change my perception of it? I mean, it can happen, but it's slow, I think, over time. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are very easy ways to just instantly change your perception of things. It sounds hard. Maybe not. The fuck do I know? Just a guy. So, in addition to that being like, is this even useful? I don't know if I would even recommend this book to anyone. I'm very interested in the creative process and how I can use that more effectively, to be more productive, to be more efficient, to enjoy it more. I like thinking about little creative hacks and things I can do to improve that experience. But does this, again, I don't feel this is very useful. And the other thing is, it's boring. The information itself is potentially interesting stuff, talking about getting in the flow, and some of the studies have the potential to be interesting, but the execution of it is, I guess, it's just kind of flat. It's very wordy. It feels like the author, and I think he's a psychologist, research psychologist, if I remember correctly. And it seems like he's more familiar with writing technical papers or papers for people in his peer group than he is for writing for the average lay person. Because it's not very entertaining. It's not very enjoyable to read. It's not a total slog to get through, but it's just kind of like, I found myself bored a lot, just kind of going, okay, yeah, I get it. Okay, still talking about that. Okay, and it's, like I said, there's stories and personal examples, but they're just kind of meh. So, yeah, see, there's that little XY thing. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy the read that much. I didn't hate it. As I said, the topic was interesting, the execution wasn't great, the readability's not fucking wonderful. It's too bad because, again, the topic of creativity and how we get in the zone and how we can sort of harness that maybe in other areas of our lives is fascinating. This does not really kind of give me a few little things to think about, but overall, I don't feel it's very useful. The writing style really holds it back, and there's not very much you can really, as I said, it's not useful. There's not much you can take from it and apply. There's no exercises or anything. There's not like, oh, and now go do this. No. So yeah, I don't really recommend this highly. It's not terrible. It's just not a great read, and I don't think you're going to be able to do much with the information. So yeah, again, as always, check out the written review with the link below in the description, and you can see my rating on it, and you can see me break down some of the categories with a little more specificity. The written reviews are usually more focused than these more rambly video ones. So if you prefer something that's less rambling, then go ahead and check that one out. There's also, of course, links to buy the book, which, of course, are affiliate links. Just so you know, I do get a tiny, tiny percentage of that if you go do that. So there you go. There's Flow. I wouldn't necessarily think it's worth getting. But the general idea is interesting. Shrug. So thanks again for watching. This is Life You Imagined. My name is Nico, and I will see you next time. Boom. Nice. Okay. That's important. It's important that I did that. No, you're over there, not over here. We're here. So when I first heard about this book, I did a dance. This is the thing that I heard. No, sir. I don't like it. Thank you, Mr. Horse.
Hey, you want to be a better person? You want to live a better life? Sweet! Make sure you hit subscribe on Life You Imagined YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit that fucking notification bell so you're always up to date with all the newest offerings from Life You Imagined. Don't forget to go ahead and hit like on the video and share with all your friends. Leave a comment with all your fucking useless information, because I'm never going to read it. Oh, and make sure you go over to lifeyouimagine.com and check out everything I have over there. Look at me, buy my stuff, do everything I want you to do. Sales, marketing, promo. Buy my stuff, buy it. Look at me, pay attention to me and everything I do. I'm insecure.